Hi, I'm Zhen. In my last video, I tested a full AI character workflow, from a simple brief all the way to a finished turnaround sheet. It worked, but one step felt weak. The silhouette exploration. The shape worked clean, but honestly, pretty generic, not much energy. And that matters, because silhouette is where the character really begins. If this part is weak, everything after just becomes harder to fix. You end up spending more time correcting shapes and proportions instead of building on a strong base. So this time, I'm making one focused change. I'm keeping the same workflow, the same character brief, the same goal, but instead of using Nano for silhouette exploration, I'm bringing in Midjourney just for that step. I want to see if more expressive shapes at the start can actually carry through the whole pipeline and make the process easier. Let's find out. I start with the same base idea, just in case you didn't watch the last video. The character brief is rebellious punk team girl. Proportion is around 4 heads tall. Shape bias is more round and the style is simplified and bold. Kind of like a designer toy character. This time I also add one identity anchor, oversized sunglasses, and just see what comes out of it. Then I run this prompt into Midjourney and generate a bunch of silhouettes. And right away, it already feels different. The first thing I notice is the variety. Even though it's the same character idea, the shapes don't feel repetitive. Some are more top-heavy, some are very slim and stretched. Some have bigger heads, some push the legs longer. So just from proportion alone, you already get very different personalities. And then if you look a bit closer, the shapes feel more intentional. You can see this kind of rhythm in the design, like big shapes, then small shapes, then big again. For example, you might have a big jacket shape on top, then very thin legs, then heavier shoes at the bottom. So your eye naturally moves through the character. It doesn't feel flat. And even though these are silhouettes, they are not just flat shapes. You can already see some big shape divisions, like where the jacket ends, where the pants start, how the hair breaks the outline. Compared to what I was getting from Nano before, these feel a lot more expressive, more personality. So at this stage, I'm not looking for something perfect. I'm just looking for a shape that feels interesting, something I can build on. So from all the options, I picked this one. The first thing that stands out is the hair shape. It almost looks like flower petals or like fingers spreading out on both sides. So it immediately becomes the first read. And that works because the rest of the body is very simple. Clean torso, simple arms, not much noise in the middle. So your eye goes straight to the head first. And then I also like the leg shape. It flares out into this triangle at the bottom. So you get a nice contrast between the round head and the sharper, wider legs. That contrast makes the silhouette feel more interesting. Overall, it's very clear, easy to read, but still has personality. So, it's a really solid base to build on. Now I move back into Nano, basically continuing the workflow from last time. I bring this silhouette into Nano and use it for what's good at, filling the design, like outfit, materials, color variations. I prompt it to maintain the silhouette and style, and explore different outfit idea inside that shape. The result is really good. Nano holds the overall silhouette very well, and it gives me a range of punk style outfit variations. I run a few versions, compare them, and eventually pick a more pop style punk outfit to move forward. At this point, I already like the direction. The overall shape and feeling are there. So Instead of sketching from scratch, I just do a quick paint over, which saves a lot of time. I start adjusting the proportion, making the head slightly bigger, shortening the body a bit to get closer to 4 heads tall. Then I push the triangular leg shape more, make it wider at the bottom to contrast with the round head. I also make some design changes. Originally, she had 2 similar gloves, so I replaced one of them with an oversized boxing glove, inspired by one of the Midjourney results. It immediately feels like a strong identity anchor, adds more personality, and also brings in some asymmetry. Then I add some smaller details, like a yellow trim on the sunglasses, a piercing on the lower lip, rings on the braids. And I add some color into the hair just to add a bit of visual interest. I also simplify some smaller shapes to keep the design clean. Once I'm happy with that, I send it back into Nano for cleanup. The result is pretty solid, only a few small fixes needed in Photoshop. Then I test 3D generation. I feed the cleaned 2D design into Nano, and I generate a 3D version with a Blender style render. It actually matches really well. There are some small issues, like the lip piercing turning into something weird. But these are easy to fix with a quick prompt adjustment. At one point, I noticed the pink shoes are grabbing too much attention, so I switched them to black leather and keep the pink more in the upper part of the character. That feels more balanced. Then I move to the character sheet. First, I adjust the pose. The original pose has a tilted hip and shoulder, which looks cool, but I want a clean A pose, standing upright, so I fix that first. Then I generate the turnaround. Overall, it works pretty well. I'd say around 95% consistent. But this is where some problems show up. The spikes on the glove become inconsistent, especially in the side view. Sometimes the number of the spikes changes, or the placement becomes random, which breaks the design logic. So I have to step in, either do a quick paint over, or guide Nano more clearly with references. Once I lock the turnaround sheet, I move on to generate the pose sheet, just to check if the design stays consistent. And the same issue shows up there. The spikes become inconsistent again. So to fix that, I either do a rough paint over to show the correct shape, or feed Nano a clear reference, like the model sheet, to help it lock the design better. So now, looking at the final result, Midjourney is really strong at silhouette exploration. The shapes feel more dynamic, more contrast, more rhythm, more personality. It gives you much stronger starting points. But for refinement, Nano is still doing most of the heavy lifting. So the key idea here is pretty simple. You don't have to rely on just one tool. You can combine them using the right tool at the right step, and staying flexible with your workflow. Midjourney for exploring shapes, and the Nano for refining and building the design. And one thing to keep in mind when you are using Nano to refine the character, it's not one prompt and done. Most of the time you'll be tweaking the wording, running a few variations, and iterating to get closer to what you want. So, if you want to try this yourself, start with Midjourney to generate silhouettes. Pick something that feels interesting or has strong shape. Then bring it into your workflow and build on top of it. That's it for this test.